Alrighty. Hey, everybody. It is a Sunday night here in Boston, which means you guys have had a chance to get your week on, so now it is time to get your geek on. We are your host, Chuck Kiwatts.
I'm Robert Dukes.
Bring you episode 122 of the Get Your Geek On podcast. And we do want to open up with some condolences here. Sad day in the sports and entertainment world. Kobe Bryant passed away tragically at the age of 41, along with his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, and 3 others. Obviously...
I think it was 9 people died in that crash.
I thought it was 5.
I said 9.
Okay. The fact is, his daughter's gone with him as well, and obviously, other than Michael Jordan, I'd say the greatest basketball player of all time has left us at the age of 41. Academy Award winner as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick thoughts on that. I mean, obviously, we're sports fans.
It was sad because I remember where I was when he was drafted. So just a hint, Kobe and Bryant and I, he's a few months younger than I am. But I remember when he got drafted in 1996, I was at the Meadowlands Fair, and the draft was at the Continental Airlines Arena, right 500 feet away from where I was, and so he got drafted. Lauren Marion, Pennsylvania High School, one of those guys who.
A giant nerd in his own right too, is one of the biggest Harry Potter fans you will ever meet.
Just because of the things he's done in his career, basketball. His life was more than basketball. People always forget that. That's what he did, but his life was more than basketball, and it's sad, especially with his daughter, who was also an up and coming player in her own right at the age of 13, and he was coaching their team and just working with them in some way, shape, or form, and just all the stuff. It's just a really, really sad day for sports in the sporting world. Chuck told me on my way from driving back from New Jersey.
Yeah, I was the first to tell a couple people today.
And I looked at it, it's like, it's TMZ. If it goes beyond TMZ,
that's what it was waiting for confirmation.
Yeah, I want to see some confirmation.
So what's very weird for me is I actually knew about the crash before I knew he was on it, because one of my friends lives about 3 miles from where the helicopter went down and was posting pictures like, helicopter crash near my house, scary. And then to hear it. But yeah, for a good 20 minutes, TMZ was the only source, and no one knew for sure.
Yeah.
Very weird, but obviously, rest in peace to him and anybody that was even remotely a sports fan. I will still yell Kobe anytime I throw anything into the trash.
Everybody will do.
On a happier note, I do have to say, if you have small children, turn them away or earmuff it right here, because it's about to get R-rated. Fuck everybody! I was right! I told you so! I told you so! I told you so! I told everybody so! And got so much crap, because Ezra Miller appeared in Crisis on Infinite Earths. You doubted me. The world doubted me. I didn't doubt me. It was there. The cameo you said could never happen.
I didn't think it was going to happen until I saw it, and I will give you, it was like, it is probably one of the greatest fan service moments of all time that you will get.
Absolutely, but there had to be some part of your brain that's like, Chuck is losing his mind right now.
You said a message like, I told you so, I told you. I'm like, yeah, you told me so. But that was probably one of the greatest fan service moments outside of having J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man Far From Home. Better
even
than
that, because it was just this whole thing. We'll never cross the streams, and it'll never happen. Even with Marvel, something they have never done.
So it was just a great thing for them to acknowledge after all those years of just. It was just like all the things that we were talking about going up to Justice League, all the problems. They were talking about with the Flash movie, every little bit of that.
Now that opens up real questions for the Flash movie, because they said that that cameo wasn't just fans.
Yeah, it's not just
fans. It means something, and the fact that he was alive when all the other Earths. There's so many implications to go with that. But just the way it was done was so incredible. Like that comical moment between them. But let's just go with it. How did they keep that secret? Because
you didn't keep. No, it wasn't a secret because you knew. It's not a secret if Chuck knew. So the idea here is this: anybody who's not watched this podcast in any way, shape, or form, he has been saying this.
It was either going to be him or Cavill.
Like months. We were talking about this back in October, before the crisis started. He had already had confirmation. So. And I was like, why would they do that? That doesn't make sense.
To anyone that questions our sources, they are legit, because nobody was reporting that cameo was coming.
Nobody reported that cameo, and that was probably one of the best things. It is one of the best moments. It's like, what are you? It's like, I'm the Flash. And he's like, Barry
That was the coolest part, was because Ezra's wasn't called the Flash yet, so you saw him putting that together.
I was like, oh, I'm the Flash. It's like, oh, you're like, I like your suit, and they touching each other. It's like so nice.
And then he did the, oh, dude, don't do that to me right now. What are we hiding? Like in that 1 minute of screen time, answered so many questions, gave so much fan service, but then asked a ton of questions because you're like, what's happening? Why did he fade out? Is that his Earth being wiped out? Is that like Flashpoint implications? Like, where are they going with that? But to be right on that, which was something that like everyone's like, there's no world, it's never gonna happen, you're just full of shit, like you're a big.
Well, it's like I will.
It's the same source that told me the Green Lantern show. Like,
it's the idea here is that I'm more than happy to eat humble pie and King Crow on this one because it's the only thing that was really really disappointing at the end was your Green Lantern thing where they showed the movie. That was super disappointing.
And from what I'm hearing for the Arrow finale, he does get a ring. So we'll see that happen, but it's not anything more than that. But to be right about that and to see it done was so good. But now let's talk about Crisis, which wrapped up. I loved it. I thought they stuck the landing. The way that they merged into the new Earth Prime was really cool. That the way they found out about it was really cool. But I got to tell you,
like John Judge is like, oh, it's like John Judge is like, oh, here, hold on a second. Yes. I was like, it's like, wait, there was a Superman.
John Cryer's Lex Luthor is growing on me, man. I watched this week's episode of Supergirl as well to see it, which is cool because Brainiac is now finally Green Brainiac from the comics.
Yeah,
and that was really cool. But I got to tell you, he's growing on me. He's never going to outdo Rosenbaum.
No, he's not.
But to see like the way that they played him, I mean, what were your thoughts overall on Crisis? Did they stick the landing after the hiatus?
They did stick the landing after the hiatus. It was just the what was my major issue at the end of that? The Green Arrow stuff. I wish they had given a little more thought to.
Yeah. I didn't like him as Spectre. Like Spectre wasn't comic book Spectre to me.
No. But again, you know.
I like the Anti-Monitor, though. Ryan Choi, I thought, was going to suit up for Adam. I felt like he was kind of useless there. I know that they're doing it to bring him onto Legends as the new Adam, but... And can we also talk... Zack Snyder released that Ryan Choi was in his Snyder Cut. Like, he's just releasing more and more stuff from the Snyder Cut, and like, it needs to happen. Which leads me to a second point. The movie Fanboys, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, I know you've never seen. There is real talk about them making a Fanboys 2 now, and just like the plot of the first one was stealing Phantom Menace, it's stealing the Snyder Cut. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd watch that. But Crisis, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with this. So, obviously, now the Arrowverse is one Earth. We are on Earth Prime. How did you feel that was handled? Like, do you like how it is going forward? And, like, the fact that, hey, we can call our guys right there.
Yeah, the whole point is like, when he's like, wait a second, what do you do? When Flash and Supergirl was like, wait, what are you doing on my Earth? No, what are you doing on my Earth? It's like...
Which is another story I can break. So the Arrow cast members have already been dispersed onto the other CW shows. Yeah. Diggle, for example, will be a big guest star on The Flash, which they're setting up even more because his Green Lantern... So the end of Arrow, I know for a fact, ends with a green ring box coming to him from outer space. And you just hear the voice, John Diggle, you have the ability to overcome great fear. And he opens the box, you see the green glow, and that's where it cuts out. But then he goes to a Flash episode a couple of weeks from now where he's dealing with an artifact that was sent to him that he needs to get Barry's help to figure out. It's like they're leaning into that. I don't believe that they're setting him up to be the Green Lantern for the HBO Max show, but I do believe that the HBO Max show will be Arrowverse tied in. That's the reason why it was given the designation Earth 12. In the end, when they showed the Green Lantern movie, it got its own designation. That wasn't done for no reason.
Yeah.
And then the quick glimpse, if you look when they showed Stargirl's cast, that's Alan Scott standing right next to her, suited up. So that was really cool. I thought that let's just talk about it. Brandon Routh, Superman.
See, this is where I'll have my moment in terms of this one.
Absolutely. So the same sources that told us about the Ezra Miller cameo, the Green Lantern show, and stuff like that, are telling us that there are very, very serious meetings going on right now to have a 6 to 8 episode limited series done on HBO Max of Brandon Routh's Superman from Superman Returns in his post-crisis. So setting everything up with his new Earth coming back. I am so all for this. Now, Robert has talked in previous episodes that he loves Superman Returns. Yeah. I hated the movie. I did not like what they did with his character. I felt what they did with him in Crisis was better than he ever was in the movies, but I want to see more of it now. We know we're getting the Superman and Lois show with Tyler Hoechlin's Superman.
That was even a big, was like boys. That was like, it's like boys. He's like, what?
Yeah, the twins. Let's talk about that. So they're the Wonder Twins. Yeah. That's what they're doing with this.
Oh, man.
That's cool, man. I like these little subtle changes and stuff like that, but that's going to add a whole new dynamic to that show. Yeah. And watch them do it where one of them has powers and one doesn't. That would
I'm
just
fine
make
with
sense.
that.
But like, do you want to see the Brandon Routh HBO show?
Yeah, absolutely. I want because it was one of those things for me where again I did not have a problem with that movie. Bryan Singer. One of the things that upset me was that Bryan Singer left the X-Men franchise to do this one, and it was like one and done. And it was like I thought it was a good Superman movie. It reminded me of the ones that I was a kid. I thought Brandon Routh filled the role, and he just got flack for no reason.
But what he did in Crisis as Superman,
what he
like
did
that is Superman.
And it's like we come back to a role, you have time to think about what you could have done differently. And I think he would that was one of his first roles, because I hadn't heard anything from him ever prior to that.
And this was back when they were still trying to get someone as close to looking as Christopher Reeve as possible. Let's talk about when they resurrect him at the end. He doesn't have the black in his symbol, so that means clearly his Lois and everybody else is alive as well, because that's why he added the black. Yeah. So what storyline would you like to see them go with him? Because he might it's HBO, so you can go darker, you can go more adult.
I mean, at this point in time, you want to bring back Kate Bosworth you want to bring back those characters. You probably
because his son Jason has powers in that world too.
You want to have those things, and that's a good story. You want to bring these people back into this because I felt that was a story that really needed to be explained at the end of Superman Returns.
And can we just talk about for a second that this is what Marvel hasn't been able to do. Marvel has tried to adapt multiple comic book storylines, and obviously you have to make changes.
Yeah.
Civil War and stuff like that. This was not even remotely really close to what Crisis on Infinite Earths was in the comics, but it kept enough of those elements and created its own world within here where it works.
But you know where the reason why one of the reasons why I would say Crisis on Infinite work is because DC and I'm not going to say this. I am going to say this. Marvel and DC understand the history behind the comic books.
Right.
Now, DC is willing to probably take a little more risks than Marvel is. And this is a risk that paid off because they understood the years of fan service. Kevin Conroy, anybody who did not know anything about Kevin Conroy or anybody who's new to the Batman franchise, he has been the voice of Batman on just about every animated series outside.
He's to Batman what Peter Cullen is to Optimus Prime.
Yeah, Optimus Prime. It's just like this has been the voice of Batman for years. Forget Dietrich Bader, forget Bruce Greenwood, forget Jason Mara. This has been the voice of Batman for a generation of people, teenagers, kids grew up with him as the voice of Batman. And we wouldn't have gotten that if it weren't for Crisis on Infinite Earths. We wouldn't have gotten Smallville. We wouldn't have gotten Tom Welling back as Smallville because they had built up all of this. And the fact that they understand the fan service behind all of it. They understood, like somebody who said, we're going to go back deep into the history of the DC universe on television and movies and pull that out. We wouldn't have got Linda Carter on Supergirl if they didn't understand that.
But the Ezra Miller thing is perfect because if you remember, we were talking how John Cryer had tweeted out before the hiatus that they had shot stuff that wasn't even in the script. So they were there's that Ezra Miller. But it's like what they did here is incredible storytelling. But then again, like you said, this could have been corny fan service. This could have just been cameos for the sake of cameos.
But and it's like cameos for the sake of cameos. And we thought that for years with a lot of stuff they were doing on Supergirl. We got Dean Cain back. Yes, we have Terry Thatcher on. So you get all these people that you understand that they had a role in the universe at one point in time. But this is one of the things that I will say it hits you in the feels. It hits you in the feels and it makes you feel good about being a comic book fan, and they respect you. They don't make you feel dumb. Marvel doesn't make you feel dumb either, but for them, it's a little more corporate.
But I feel like when Marvel tries to adapt a storyline, they really kind of only adapt it in name. Civil War was nothing close to what the Civil War comic was because you had none of the X-Men and stuff like that. But I appreciate it. Right. Infinity War, nothing close to what it is in the comics. But it's appreciated. But I feel like Crisis kept enough of the elements from the comic, but then used it to the point that they're actually putting out an omnibus of this Crisis on Infinite in comic book form in a couple months, which I'm very excited. But it set up things in such a great way. It kind of was a breath of fresh. It's a breath of fresh air into these franchises in season 6 and 7 where you can tell all new stories.
Yeah, and it's like that's the thing here where the thing that and you heard me a couple weeks ago. For me, the Flash was getting very stale.
And now I'm really excited.
It's like the Flash was getting really stale because it's now you can go into the pantheon. Now there's no reason you can like, oh yeah, we can have Black Lightning on the show. We can have
that was cool to see Black, because that was always the one that we were like, oh, we're not sure if he's going to be in the crossover, and then if he is, how much?
How much? And it's like, you know, and it's just this, and then you know, and the sad thing is we won't get any more Wells in the universe. It's just now we're stuck with Nash Wells.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's like that was one of the things I did enjoy. It was like, what version of Wells are we going to get this time?
But which is another thing that could have been done so corny on any other show. Like, just look at soap operas, how they do that all the time. It's like, I was lost on a Japanese fishing boat with amnesia and his nurse. But what Crisis did for me, and that hiatus did suck, but thankfully they did stick the landing, is it really kind of hit a reset button where I feel like we're at season 1 on some of these shows again, which is going to allow new people to come into the show. But man, way to bring a comic book story to life. Yeah. I am so excited for the idea of a Brandon Routh Superman show, though. Like,
it's...
And then what we get for, like, it gave you just enough of those teases for the Black Arrow, or Green Arrow and the Canary show, which, you know, I'm not really excited for that. But the Superman and Lois looks like it's going to be incredible. Legends of Tomorrow. To see Bebo come on now, which is like the unofficial mascot of the Arrow. I think he's the official mascot of the Arrowverse now. It was done so well in something that could have been just corny fan service. But I think they're kind of slyly setting up Batman Beyond. Because when you cut back to that Batman 89 camo, it is the Batman Beyond bat symbol. And that could not have been done for no reason.
It could.
Because the 89 Batman's bat symbol is so iconic.
It is. I think for me, the big thing for if they were going to do Batman Beyond,
that could be a good HBO Max show. If you get Keaton back.
If you get, well, we can talk about some other things because we got to talk about the Morbius one too. So
and the fact that it's so let's just go right into that. Morbius is in the MCU, which here's how it's in the MCU. They used a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man screenshot for that wall graffiti, and then they threw Michael Keaton's Vulture in there at the last minute. Which I got to be honest with you, when I saw the trailer, I didn't connect him as Vulture. I just thought, oh, Michael Keaton's in this, like. It looks terrible. Let's be honest. Like,
well, I'm okay. Again, so
were you a Morbius fan? Let's start there.
No, because the idea is this: Morbius was interesting on the Spider-Man animated TV show,
which even then he was so nerfed because they couldn't call him a blood, like all kinds of crap with that.
Because even outside of that, but the idea here is this: he starts out as the Spider-Man villain / anti-hero in terms of what we see. But then he ends up being somebody that comes into contact with Blade, and those are the two things that right now you're like, okay, well, if he doesn't show up in a Blade movie, and even outside of that, it's just like, I'm just kind of done with Jared Leto and comic book characters at this point in time. So I'm not looking forward to seeing
Would you like to text him and tell him that? He put his phone number up on Twitter today, and I have been texting him. That is not a joke. If you would like to text Jared Leto, it's 213-335-2233, and tell him your thoughts on this crappy movie. I just don't think, and now it's called The Web of Spider-Man is the official title for the non-Spider-Man movies in Venom and stuff like that here, which Venom 2 is coming out in October, and we still haven't gotten anything from that set. That worries me.
That always, well, the idea, like, there's a couple of movies that when I don't see, and there's...
To put that in perspective, Batman Day 1, we had shots of Penguin, him on the bat cycle, like everything.
It's like, it always concerns me when I don't see leaks or things like this, like in terms of, and that just tells me again, Sony is just doing what they can to milk this franchise and or make scorched earth for Marvel later on, and that's a problem.
Speaking of Marvel, we can confirm that the rights to Namor and Hulk have reverted back to Marvel.
They did.
So that's true. There is a caveat, though. Universal gets to keep their roller coaster. I told you, they'll never give that thing up.
No. But, well, even outside of this, it's like, so, like, right now, you've made is, like, NBC Universal has had those things for, 20 years? Has had the Hulk, has over 20 years, 25 years. Has had they've made as much money as they possibly can off of this, and they understand that it's like they know that when they've done a movie, if Marvel does a movie, it's going to fix a lot of their issues, and it's made in essentially much like Spider-Man. Although I did like the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk.
I did too.
I was like that made complete and total sense to me, and I enjoyed it because they did try to play off the end. They tried to merge the Ang Lee version with that. and I thought they pulled it off very well, and it gave William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross.
And I still think Edward Norton was incredible Bruce Banner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot the reason why they couldn't get him just long.
It was him. He was just being a dick.
Yeah.
He wanted Robert Downey Jr. money, and they weren't going to give it to him.
Yeah.
Which I love that everybody now is talking like, oh, Doolittle tanked, so he's going to come back to the MCU instantly. It's like,
No.
first of all, no. That's not how Hollywood works.
No, it's like if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast with him,
which was awesome.
It was just some of the best stuff out there. He's like, yeah,
90% of my black friends like Tropic Thunder. I love that. And like, you see all the articles picking up. Robert Downey Jr. is not sorry he did blackface, and it's like, what?
No, the idea is like this. It's like some people, if you understood the joke behind it, the whole point was, it's like at the time when they were doing this, it was like, at the time they were doing this, and that movie, the whole joke was like you had all these Australian actors who were doing tons and tons of roles and thought they could do everything.
And you had Emma Stone did Aloha.
Yeah.
At the time, it was like, I'm Asian. It's like, okay, Emma Stone, yeah. But it's just, needless to say, what they're doing with Morbius is so unnecessary to me. It's like you're never going to be able to build a franchise out of that character.
No,
he's not even a good B team member. So it's like you're not setting up your own Avengers. What's the point?
You're not setting up your thing. The whole point is the rumor is they're setting up a Sinister Six movie, which I have emphatically
tried to do for years.
Which is like I've emphatically said, do not do this. It is the dumbest thing for you to do this.
Have they ever even fought anyone other than Spider-Man?
No.
Exactly. So what the hell? Like,
no, it's the idea. But the idea is again.
But who's in the room? Like, this is what we have to do.
Because it's basically Sony does not want to get foxed at this point in time, and I'm calling that legitimately foxed because it's like the idea is they have put out some stinkers, and yes, it's like you're gonna take just take the money, dude. Just take the money that Disney is giving you. And Marvel's giving you for these rights. Stop trying to make movies and put it into other projects. You better hope James Bond does well, as it should, because you own the rights to that. And if you don't put stop putting money into things that you know are not going to benefit you. Also, don't use China as an out to solve all of your problems.
I'm so sick of that already.
Like that's their whole thing. It's like we're gonna the whole thing is okay. We're gonna put it in. We're gonna send it out to China to make sure that China fixes it, because that's where they make their money. That's what got Venom over the edge. That's it's like all right, Asia, they're Asian sales.
But it's just like DC is doing the exact opposite. They could give a crap less about money. They're not making anything off of those TV shows. But look at what they put into the time and the effort and like paying off for the fans. Like we know our viewership is dropping off. We know that like it's not getting. Let's give our fans a reason. The people that have stuck around for 6 seasons, you know what I mean? Let's reward that loyalty.
And that's the whole point. It's not just 6 seasons. It's everything that you've ever invested in a DC series. Again, whether it be Lois and Clark,
Birds of Prey.
Every aspect of it, and I called that. I was like, yes, because it was like you get those 2 moments in there because you invested in that show at one point in time. The '90s Flash, that was the beginning when we got John Wesley Shipp. DC, especially on television, has been very good about paying those aspects,
and it felt earned.
Yes.
It didn't feel like it was just there to be there.
Yeah, it's like the idea is this: if you grew up at some point in time, you've seen the '90s Flash show, you've seen Batman animated series, you've seen Lois and Clark, you've seen Smallville, you've seen every show that they've put on there, and it's good, and you have to enjoy it.
And I love that on a smaller story here, which kind of fell under the radar, it seems that when it comes to recasting certain actors, Marvel is just as on board as we are, because Patrick Stewart. Hello, Logan. Hello.
Yeah.
He has apparently met with Kevin Feige about the role of Professor X, which I got to say, that kind of surprises me. And then I've heard that they are still trying to throw every Brinks truck possible at Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, they are. And because the idea is, so again, this goes along with Sony. We understood the J. Jonah Jameson. You needed to have that. There are iconic characters that were happening. I feel bad for Wesley Snipes. He should be Blade. He still deserves that role, but maybe we'll see what happens.
Maybe Mahershala Ali suddenly has an accident of his own. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But that's the thing. Like, tell me that just about the Morbius trailer. Tell me that doesn't get a million times better if instead of fucking Michael Keaton, it's Blade.
Yeah.
That final scene.
Yeah, that final scene. But it's like, that's the way to do it. But they're not going to do it because Sony is Sony. And it's, it's like everybody likes putting Jared Leto in a movie,
But, like, stop making movies just to make the movie. Let's make a story. Let's make something that can go somewhere. Like, I have high hopes for Venom 2 because it's Carnage and there's rumors of Tom Holland coming. It's like, you can salvage that and try to piece it together.
You could salvage that, but again, the idea here is this, yes, you can have Tom Holland come in, you could talk about this, but the point of the matter is that for a long time, Venom was you can't just, you need to give the symbiote to Tom Holland first for that to make sense before you go to Eddie Brock.
In Infinity War was your friggin' chance. You were on an alien planet.
Yeah. Like you that was your chance. That was simply your chance to do it. Because the whole point is everybody remembers the Black Spider-Man costume, and then all of a sudden you realize like he's getting taken over. That was one of those things, and they made that story. And then it goes to Eddie Brock, and Eddie Brock becomes this super monster. I'm sorry. That's my fault. I forgot to mute my phone. Going forward, though, it's just, if you're Sony right now, you need to think about your future. Because like the last thing you want to do is, like, and I'll say it, you don't want to get Fox. You don't want NBC. You don't want Comcast Universal buying you. You don't want anybody of that nature sitting there as you sitting on that. Because you're giving up a ton of rights to stuff right now. Focus on the shows. Focus on movies that you can enjoy and want to do. So right now, you own Columbia Pictures. You're going after James Bond. Make the James Bond press the best thing ever.
I don't even care about that movie.
But that's I do, because I'm a James Bond fan. That's one of the.
I've just never liked Craig's Bond personally.
But it's one of the key franchises that has.
I will agree with that.
Yeah, it's one of the key franchises, and they've owned the rights for that for years. 4 years because of Columbia tries to. And
can I be honest with you? I feel like Mission Impossible has done better than Bond ever could. Like, Mission Impossible took Bond to the next level. You know what I mean?
Because you're forced. You're forced to do that when people are doing things that better than you are.
But then, look, what I mean is, like, Bond is still cranking out those movies, but it's always the same thing. Whereas Mission Impossible, it's that same thing. It's a spy movie, but they find ways to take it to the next level every time.
So what makes this Daniel Craig's Bond interesting for me, and I think I've told you why I think it's important. It has been a continuous story for his entire.
So you like that? Like, once Christoph Waltz came in, it kind of changed.
But not Christoph Waltz. Go back and look at Casino Royale. From Casino Royale until now, they have been telling the same story, which led up. So the last movie led up to Christoph Waltz. But if you didn't see Casino Royale, none of it would have made sense, because the whole point is because it's been this whole thing where he's been chasing after these entire things, and it's like one thing has led to another. And so the guy that Casino Royale leads to Quantum of Solace, which then leads into all the other movies.
Quantum of Solace,
Skyfall, which led into the last movie, which leads into the one now. So if you don't watch them, and I encourage you, go watch them. They have been telling a story, much like Marvel has over Daniel Craig's run, past 10 years?
Yeah.
They've been telling a story about this particular Bond, with characters coming back consistently into the picture. And like, guys are like, wait, I thought you were dead. No, you're not dead. And the fact that they bring Christoph Waltz in, all this, and they've been following this story for years. And so that's where I'm looking for. That's the payoff. Focus on that if you're Sony.
Okay.
Focus on telling those stories and making those movies work. That is what's going to make me continue to come back to you. Like, I understand you have had the Spider-Man franchise for years. You have had, it's like you came out with the first two movies, Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, still probably one of the best ones made, and one of the best ones. We're not talking about Far From Home. We're not talking about Spider. It was one of the best ones made. You can just identify with that. You understand it. And then you hit Spider-Man 3. And then it's like, really?
I forgot I can break some quick news to you from one of our sources sent me pictures. Kyler Lee, who plays Alex on Supergirl, will be getting her own suit.
Okay.
I have a feeling that it is Mr. Mxyzptlk related because they cast Thomas Lennon as the new him. But I'll show you the close-up. There's that. And then I have the on-set photos here.
It's not Lois Lane.
No, so that was the thing. So I saw that picture on the Instagram. I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like a fan edit, something like that. And then it says this is our crew member sent us the production stills. So that is actually her in the suit.
So do you know this? I'm trying to forget. It's Lana Lang and Lois Lane. So there's that version of Superman or Super. So.
That's really cool to me to see what they're doing from there. Now, let's take a perfect example here where we were talking about where Crisis could have been fan service just for the sake of fan service, where they put in a good story, where the exact opposite happens with Picard. Picard was just lazy writing and fan service for the sake of fan service with episode 1. There's high hopes for where the story can go, but I will say mild spoiler alert here for episode 1. Basically, the whole plot is that girl that he has to save, you come to find out at the very end of the episode, is Data's daughter. So Data had originally always wanted a daughter, and he actually paints that picture of them. A scientist used that picture to create 2 twins that were used off of Data's memory files and stuff like that, and they're both instinctively programmed that if anything happens to them to seek out Jean-Luc Picard. That's what happens. This young girl comes, finds him out. Spoiler alert, at the end of the episode, she dies, but then you do find out that she has the twins, so now Jean-Luc Picard is set off on a mission to try to protect the twin. So lazily done. The cast cameos from Next Generation are just not even explained. They're just there. And it is the complete opposite of everything Crisis was, where Crisis was like, let's, give this fan service and try to set up a new story that reinvigorates our franchises going forward. This one was just like, Member Berries. It was Member Berries, the movie. And it's just like, where are you going to go from it? And they've already greenlit a 2nd and 3rd season.
Okay. Well, you got to. All right. If you are, based on what we've talked about today, if you are worried about Disney sniping away one of your key, and especially for Paramount, you're going to want to make sure you have Patrick Stewart's like, all right, you're going to do this until you're going to do this until you pull a Leonard Nimoy. Use him as long as you possibly can.
And I know that this is going to sound weird, but it's very hard for me to take that version of Star Trek seriously now in a world where the Orville exists. And I'll say that
because that was the whole point of the Orville.
Well, but that's the thing is the Orville is telling better stories than Star Trek ever did. More relevant with the political like they have a whole episode where the Mocklins, where they're all born male, and then you find out that no, some are born female, and they forcibly change them to males. And it's like this whole incredible episode about like birth rates, but they're doing so much more, and it's because it's fan service in a way, because Seth MacFarlane is the biggest Star Trek fan. But it's just this weird thing where like the tribute has now outshined the original.
No, because it's so one of the things is this. I'm not a fan of the CBS Access service. I think CBS is doing as much as I enjoy streaming for a lot of things, I think they are doing a great disservice to their fans, and to their actual content on their channel, especially with shows leaving or not doing that well.
And then they'll do the stupid thing where it's like, we'll put the first 2 episodes on CBS on TV, so like you can air and watch it there, but then it all goes to the app, and it's like, let's be honest, no one's using that app.
It's just like,
you pirate it, if anything.
Yeah, it's like, people want to watch these episodes, and yes, you have Star Trek Discovery and all these guys, like, yeah, great, put them on regular TV.
Oh, did you hear what their next big reboot is for the CBS All Access, Matt? They're bringing back Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
With like the original character, it's just like a continuation of the story, but it's like you're not going to be able to ride this nostalgia wave forever. Like, people need to realize that you got to tell fresh stories, and that's what really disappointed me about Picard, is because it is just so much recycled Next Generation.
Yeah, but that's gonna happen.
But instead of taking like what happened, Next Generation happened, let's tell this post tale and everything. Yeah. It is just straight. It's the exact opposite of everything Crisis was.
Yeah.
And to see that type of lazy writing out of something that you would expect to be.
But again, it's people who. So again, with Greg Berlanti and oh God,
Mark Guggenheim.
Not Guggenheim.
Berlanti.
Writer. Green Lantern.
But that's Berlanti.
Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns. Being a part of that. Again, you have people who care about the story.
And look at it, it's the two of them, and they run the entire Arrowverse. Yeah, like there's cohesiveness.
But with Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry was one of the major minds behind this. And
didn't he write a manual or something? Like there's some kind of like Star Trek code that he wrote that like you can't undo certain. So when it comes to the TV side.
But I think they've already. There's stuff that they've already violated with that with Star Trek: The Next Generation. Okay. But and I enjoyed the other series too. I think there's just so much there in the universe that they could do if they stopped. If you put it on TV, it's just And again, for CBS, it's one of those networks where everybody knows not all your TV shows are made by the network that it is. Some shows are made by NBC; they just end up on CBS. But just put it on TV and then use the app. Don't make the app the exclusive place to do that because you kill your audience immediately.
Now, drama from Picard's side, now moving over to drama on the Disney side. The Obi-Wan show appears to have been canceled. It's put on an indefinite hold. The crew has been sent home. Whereas if it does get picked up, scripts are being completely rewritten. It's been cut from 8 episodes to 4. They've cut out the entire young Luke Skywalker storyline. Thoughts on this? I mean, for a show that was like in development for years we've heard about this.
It's in development for years.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but it's not just with
Obi-Wan. It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of things. So it's like we've heard similar things about Winter Soldier. I've heard similar things about WandaVision. I've heard.
Yet they're fast tracking the Cassian Andor series.
It's like there are things on here where.
So can I elaborate that the WandaVision? So that's why Scott Derrickson left Doctor Strange 2. It finds out. So the WandaVision they're basically trying to use to influence the Loki show and Doctor Strange 2, and that's where they're having all these trouble because the people that are writing on it, they're like, look, we're trying to write this show, stop trying to use this as your coverall for these other franchises and stuff like that because we can't manage it. So that's the goal. They're basically like WandaVision will set up the events of Doctor Strange 2, but it's also influencing the Loki show because of him going back and doing his own reality warping thing. So it's just like there's all kinds of hell going on with that now. Brie Larson is apparently demanding all kinds of insane money for Captain Marvel 2, and she wants top billing in the Avengers. So now they're really kind of quietly writing Scarlet Witch in as now the most powerful Avenger and really try to see what they do with that, but it's like they're banking so much on this show to try to tell the story going forward.
Well, because we're talking that because they know where their bread is buttered. Like as much as we have had the thing on this one, one of the largest things outside of the Fantastic Four is the X-Men and the mutants and the powers. That is where you get most of the Marvel stuff. If you're not like Captain America, Super Soldier Serum, you weren't in an accident, you're not the Incredible Hulk. Oh, your powers are mutant, and that is one of the largest storylines. And so I'm not surprised because this is where they're building towards. Is WandaVision is supposed to make some of this stuff happen. So yeah, you're going to put a lot of bank on it. Again. I don't know if TV is the format for it.
Absolutely. And it's just weird to me that, if you're bringing back Vision, you're bringing back Quicksilver in this show, you better damn well be able to use this to bring back Iron Man at some point. Let's be honest.
Again, we know, Joe Rogan podcast.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when.
It's just a matter of when. Overall, one of the things is this. Looking forward to what the Marvel Universe has to offer. We talked about Black Widow, and Chuck gave me a little thing about what's going on.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So we've heard some plot breakdown and some spoilers from the movie. It's basically Mission Impossible with Scarlett Johansson.
I have no problem with
which you're all in for. I feel like they kind of cheapened Taskmaster's identity. Just minor spoiler here. He's her ex. Yeah. We'll get into it there. And then the one dude thing I like is 90% of the movie takes place in Budapest. Yeah. So you kind of get to see what happened there. That running joke gets answered. Yeah. But what they do to set her up as her own hero, I'm hearing very good comparisons to Wonder Woman as far as what that did to set her up as a female hero without throwing it in your face. It's the anti-Captain Marvel.
It's the anti-Captain. Well, and so I talked about this before a couple of years ago. Is that this movie should have been made before Captain Marvel,
hands down. I think that's going to affect it.
Yeah, this movie should have been made before Black Widow should have been made before Captain Marvel. It really should have been that in between based on the timing. It's really that time that should have happened. And maybe it was Scarlett Johansson. Maybe you picked up Ghost in the Shell when you shouldn't have had. Maybe you did Lucy when it really should have happened, after it, it should have happened before Black Panther, but after Civil War, but before Black Panther.
I feel like we have a reverse Wonder Woman 84 thing going on here, where it's like we're so mad about that because we're like, you undid all this incredible character development that you did.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of in that same thing with Black Widow, because she's not the endgame Black Widow that we know that's like, this is my family, this and that. So it's like you're kind of going back in her development. But then if you do anything cool with her, we're not going to be able to see anything more of it because she's dead. You know what I mean? It's just like, so it's this weird, it's this weird place where it's at. I will say that everything I've heard says she carries the movie incredibly. No at point is it thrown in your face like, I'm a woman, this and that, like the cockpit line from Captain Marvel, which I will never let them live down. So I've heard great things about it on that end. I agree with like I disagree with the timeline and where it's placed and what they did with Taskmaster, because Taskmaster is like an adversary in the comics. Like he's no joke. He's feared.
Yeah, because the idea is the moment is like he can see you, he copies your abilities.
Right.
It's just immediate.
And then if you've played the Spider-Man video games at all, like he's a huge part of those. But that is just one of those things to me. It's just like, let's see where they go with it. I'm interested, but then what are you going to do with her character going forward?
Well, again, I don't know. I will say that much like Greg Berlanti and Kevin Feige has a plan. I think some of the things in terms of what we run into is I think he's one of those guys who completely understands the comic book side of it. It's just whether or not he can get it past his bosses, even though he's now the boss of Marvel. Right. Complete person. Everything goes through him. It's whether or not he can get it past what the head of Disney is, or
Bob Iger.
Because that's going to happen. And so, yes, you want Patrick Stewart absolutely back as Professor X. Yes, you want Hugh Jackman. But because he understands, again, the nostalgia behind it. He understands what the fans want. Now, we're going to get always 100%? No, we're not always going to get 100% of what we want. And the people that helped make that universe great are not, we're not always going to get that. Yeah, we're going to have, for every Endgame, we're going to have one Thor: The Dark World, two Thor: The Dark Worlds, and something else that we're just going to be like, it moves the story along, but that's it.
And I'll wrap things up here, I guess. Have you... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's a couple of things we got to talk about. One, you haven't seen it yet, but we'll talk about it. Go look at the trailer for Gums Akimbo.
That's a Daniel Radcliffe movie?
Yeah. Okay. Just so there's that. Second, we're going to talk briefly about the review of Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah, so I do want to talk... And then just real quick, have you seen any of the concept art or read any of the Colin Trevorrow what his Star Trek was going to be, Duel of the Fates?
No.
Oh my God. I cannot encourage this enough. And he confirmed it himself. So they leaked his entire script and all the concept art for what his it was originally called Star Trek Duel of the Fates. Ray gets a double-bladed lightsaber.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
but to see the Sith teacher, Tor Valom, and it was so incredible and made sense and built off of the other two. And it was everything. That's the movie that should have been made. And then just the title, Duel of the Fates, is the famous soundtrack song. So it's like to hear that. But let's move into some quick reviews here. The Gentleman, I will start. You haven't seen that yet. Guy Ritchie's best movie. Solid 9 out of 10. Great fun. Matthew McConaughey, Hugh Grant give incredible performances.
I'm waiting for
It was just filming as we speak. So Robert Downey Jr. said that he was leaving to go do that, which I'm beyond excited for. Let's talk about Bad Boys for Life. Making crazy money. Yeah. It made double what it was projected to its opening weekend. Yeah. Already cleared $100 million. They've already greenlit a part 4.
Yeah, because they leave you on a cliffhanger at the...
Did you see the mid-credit scene?
Yeah, the mid-credit scene.
Let's talk about... I personally wasn't as big a fan as other people. I liked it. I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. I didn't like the kid angle. You did.
I did.
I felt it was too close to Gemini Man's plot.
Yeah. So here's the thing with this one. One of the things that it has not, one of these things the movie has never ever had was a good written story. It's just like
a sense of heart.
A sense of heart, and it's like, the idea is like the characters were always engaging to me. Martin Lawrence was the family guy. Will Smith was the debonair, suave guy. But it always ended up with a body count and over our comical cartoon villain. for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and you're like, okay. And it usually ended, it just like, all right, yeah, Bad Boy. This one, the movie gave to me what kind of wanted was some better writing and some better character development.
What hurt me was me laughing at the Michael Bay cameo, but I was in a theater where like no one understood who that was.
Yeah, I knew it was. I laughed because it's like it was my friends were like, "Who is that?" Like it was like, and Michael Bay is like, "Yeah, like we got this." It's like
I half expected him to get blown up.
No. But this was for me the way I'm going to say it. This was the most well written.
I'll give you that.
The story for Bad Boys.
I hated seeing the captain go out. I loved him.
But that's all what, like, it was.
That came out of nowhere, too.
It was the eyes was like, this was the most well-written Bad Boys movie because they didn't do that before.
Reggie.
Yeah, they just didn't do that.
And it's like the fact that Reggie is still there and they got married. Like,
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna bring it back. We're like, and the idea was, the things that they had done in the film, you don't have to like the kid angle, but the idea is the story that, because remember that scene where they showed what Mike in Bad Boys 2, where they showed what Mike Lowry, like he looked like when he was in high school. It's like, yeah, that's Uncle Mike, and this is Uncle Mike in high school. And the idea is like, look at him, oh, and he's all goofy. And the idea is like, and it hit him, and and Will Smith does a very good job of just like, there's also more of the well acted ones.
That's the thing, but I feel like it's missing that Michael Bay-ness. Like, but like that highway chase in Bad Boys 2 is one of the best chases I've ever seen.
Like this one didn't have the action element, but it had a story element that I could get behind.
Okay, I can see you on that side of it. Whereas for me, it's like I watch Bad Boys for that kind of over the top.
Yeah, the over the top action. It's like, wait a second. There's a plot here, and it was like that's where I went in there with no expectations. I was not expecting this film. I didn't want to see this film initially, because I was just like, man, it's just like it's like Martin Lawrence is not. You haven't seen him for years. Will Smith has just kind of been churning out some stuff that was not very good, which he admits in interviews, like, hey, when you start doing stuff that people don't like, you're going to start doing the roles that you do.
And I have to come out and defend this man. Doolittle, I went and saw it. It's a great movie. Mm-hmm. For what that movie is, which is a man talking to animals, it's by far the best Dr. Doolittle I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Screw the Eddie Murphy ones. It's got real heart. It's
even the original one with not Richard Harrison.
Yes, Dick Van Dyke or whatever. Like the 60s one you're talking about.
Yeah, 60s one.
It's hands down the best. The fact that it's a period piece works. They did something cool with it that I've never seen where they explain how he's actually able to talk to them. He's speaking to each animal in their own individual language. Like, he's not talking like a human and they respond. Like, he talks like a gorilla, like, ooh, ah, and like each individual animal speaks to them in their language and interacts. And then he actually is able to teach he has a young apprentice. Like, it's a learnable skill. It's not some superpower, but it's so well made. Like, the crew of animals he has, like, he collected them throughout, history. The reason why he's isolated because of his wife dying makes sense. Like, the whole plot worked out very well. I don't understand why it's getting the hate that it is. And it's like, it's a movie about a guy that talks to animals. Are you really going in looking for Oscar caliber plot? Like,
no, I mean, it's the idea is this, and this is where, the Iron Man suit kind of kills him, is just like, you can't see him out any role outside of that, unless it's Sherlock Holmes. And it's been like, I understand, like, Robert Downey Jr. is a phenomenal actor, and I can understand why him and Chris Evans, as well as a couple of want to put down those roles because they need to do other things.
I will say I had the best joke ever in a theater that I made the entire theater. There's a scene where John Cena's polar bear character says his dad went out for a pack of seals and never came home, and I just yelled, his dad must have been a black bear. But like, it was so well made, and like the animals interact with each other well. I loved the plot, and like, it's a human story told as well. I honestly, I can't get this hate, and like, it's gonna lose more money than Cats did. Like, it's mind-boggling to me, but it's the perfect example of why Rotten Tomatoes is everything wrong with movies, because that's what led the story. 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's what leads, and that will be a reason for them to not see that movie. It's the same. That's disgusting.
It's the lemming mentality. It's just like it's the idea that you can look at Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, and any other sites out there. We've always advocated, go see the movie for yourself. It's like,
absolutely.
It's like if you feel that it's not gonna, it's like, go to a matinee showing where you're not wasting $20 It's a Saturday or Sunday.
But even Doolittle, like the audience score is like 79%. Yeah. It's like, yeah, because the audience knows what they're there to see. Like, we're critics. Like, let's be honest. Like, we're part of the problem, but we've always advocated it's subjective.
It's subjective.
The things that we like a movie for are not going to be the reasons you vote. And even when we trash a movie, we still try to say, hey, go see it for this reason. You might like it. You know what I mean?
There's always something that you're going to see. Like obviously, if you've watched us for this long and you've seen that. Like, there are certain movies that just I'm not going to see. I just don't think should be made.
We just talked about you liked Superman Returns. I didn't like it at all, but I'm not going to tell you to not go see that movie.
It's like the idea is this: you can see it, you can like it, because like there are elements in there that speak to what you like as an audience. And go see those movies for the reasons why you like it.
Don't let some nameless website tell you that a movie is garbage just because it has a numerical value assigned to it. Let's be honest, there's never been a Rotten Tomatoes score that has influenced me to go see a movie. I've never once said to you, let's go see this. Rotten Tomatoes says it's great.
Yeah, because it's like,
we have our 2 or 3 critics that we listen to. Like, that's what's the weirdest thing, is being a critic and then having to trust other critics.
For me, it's like this. I basically go to a theater and I'm like, I want to see that. Because that's like for me, I don't know for you, like one of the most satisfying aspects of going to theaters and why I still go is to go to the trailers because I want to be surprised.
That's the best thing to do. Listen to a movie theater after every trailer. It's everybody turning like that looks good. I want to see that, or like that looks like garbage.
Yeah, you look at that, and you're like I was like, I'm sorry, like Call of the Wild.
That is so garbage.
It's like I looked at that.
The dog is all CGI.
I was like, I looked at that. I'm like, I'm not going to see that film. And it's, you know why? Because it's an audience member. I'm looking at that. And, somebody's going to be great. It's like, yeah, I'd love to see Harrison Ford, but it could have been a real dog. They're a real dog.
But then you talk about, like, your Daniel Radcliffe movie.
Yeah. Like, nobody's going to see. It's like this. I'm like, yeah, I saw that on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, I want to see this. Because it's just, the premise is just like, if you ever see Cranked, it's like Cranked. And it's like, that's why I was like, yeah, I want to see that.
That's why it takes one good line in a trailer. Will make me go see a movie and stuff like that. Look at What We Do in the Shadows. I went just because of the Virgin line, and now it's become one of my favorite movies and TV shows ever. So never, ever, ever let those websites tell you not to go see a movie, because you're going to miss out on some great stuff. And I feel like Doolittle is one of those. As we start to wrap up things here, any final thoughts for you? I will just say that, The Walking Dead finally revealed the cause of the zombie virus is a space spore. There it is for you. That's what caused all of that drama.
Alex Jones was right.
I have the documents right here.
The documents?
It was a gay meteorite. The frogs did it.
Yeah. Overall, there's a movie. So Oscars. I just wanted to briefly touch on that. Thoughts?
I think Joker's gonna. So he took the SAG award. I think 1917 gets Best Picture, deservedly so.
Best cinematography as well.
Yeah, Joaquin will take Best Actor. Phillips might get Best Director. Mm-hmm. As far as that, I mean, this is one of the few years where I think the Golden Globes are going to kind of mirror everything. I will say this much, though. It's a shame that Robert Downey Jr. didn't get nominated for The Irishman, and it's a shame that Sam Rockwell didn't get nominated for Jojo Rabbit.
Robert De Niro for The Irishman?
Robert De Niro, yeah. And then Sam Rockwell not getting nominated for Jojo Rabbit, I feel like is a crime.
What do you think about Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems?
I didn't like Uncut Gems. I didn't like his performance in it. I feel like his accent comes and goes way too much. Like, he didn't deserve to be nominated for an Oscar.
Okay.
A Golden Globe, sure, give him that nomination, but it wasn't worth it.
Okay.
Jennifer Lopez for Hustlers, it's like, what? Because you got to see her ass in a G-string? Like, let's be honest, her performance wasn't great. But like Adam Sandler's especially...
She's getting sued for that, by the way.
Is she really? Oh, yeah, by the actual girl she portrayed.
Yeah.
But like Adam Sandler's accent comes and goes the entire movie. Like, I would say that like Hugh Grant gives a better performance in The Gentleman than Adam Sandler does in Uncut Gems. And Uncut Gems had such an unsatisfying ending. Like, the way that had the characters been able to react to that ending, then I feel like it's a little bit better. Let the wife come in and see that, or let the girlfriend come back with all the money. Like, we won, honey. Oh, drop the bags. Everybody's like, you know what I mean? That cheapened it for me. But yeah, that wasn't a snub for me. Like, Sam Rockwell not getting one for Jojo Rabbit, I feel is like a gigantic snub. I just rewatched it the other day because we brought it back to ArcLight. Incredible movie. Like, and his performance in it, it's so good when you realize he's playing a gay Nazi. Like, it's the Golden Globes and the Oscars are always so weirdly subjective to me, but then I love that the Academy came out and said they didn't nominate him or Jennifer Lopez because of their past movies. Like, Adam Sandler makes a content and a genre of film that we don't support. So he would have to have multiple performances like Uncut Gems for them to consider nominating him. Which is hilarious when you hear that he said that if he didn't get nominated, he was going to go make the worst movie of all time just out of spite.
Yeah.
was like, what are you gonna make, Jack and Jill 2?
No, it was also, I mean, like
Grown Ups 3.
It's like, let's talk about the fact that he did make Spanglish, which was kind of serious.
Punch Drunk Love.
Punch Drunk Love. That was like, it's just like, what do you? Again, this is.
I think. Can I be honest? That's what I was talking about. Eddie Murphy not getting it from My Name Is Dolomite.
Yeah. Well, that's Netflix. That's the number one reason.
Roma.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like there are ones where Roma hit a like My Name Is Dolomite, and if you ever seen his movie, go back and you can find it. I'm Mr. Church.
Okay.
Mr. Church. Well acted movie. He is serious. It's like this. It's like. It reminds me of the reason why I miss Eddie Murphy just being a public figure. You know, I'm SNL aside and stuff like that. I miss having him in movies. Like you need him. You need his character. You need his essence in films today, and we don't have that.
One thing I can announce here is we're getting back to doing guest interviews, and I can actually announce 4 guests that we are going to be having before the end of February. We will be having stand-up comedian Cy Admonson on hopefully in the next week or 2. We will have 2 returning guests in the form of Carrie Means, the voice of Frylock from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and our good friend Harvey Guillen is going to give us an exclusive preview of Season 2 of what we do in the shadows. And then a guest I am very excited to have on will be Amanda Connor, who is one of the writers and illustrators of Harley Quinn. She has done pretty much the entire Rebirth run forever, and she is the lead artist on the Harley Quinn animated series, which I am so in on. It's so good.
Oh my gosh!
Have you watched it?
Yes, yeah.
Tell me that's not incredibly good.
This is again. So it's just DC. Like that. That's what they're good.
Though? Like, how did you make an R-rated cartoon
because
that good?
Because it's just. This is where you have people who enjoy what they do and understand the character, understand the source of it, and they're not taking it too serious. Like I said, like Dietrich Bader being the voice of Batman,
which is weird, but it works.
It works. It's like because you need it's like you want the guy who sounds like Kevin Conroy, but you don't want Kevin Conroy doing it.
Can I tell you though? This is like honestly try to remember the last cartoon that you were excited about that every week had a new episode. You're like, I can't wait for the new episode. Like it has that Saturday morning cartoon nostalgia.
Yeah, outside of anime, you're not going to get that. Like there's just if you're not watching certain kinds of anime, it's just like American animation.
And Kaylee Cuoco's voice has grown on me. Like that is Harley's voice to me now. Like but that show shouldn't work as well as it does with
Prey.
Ron Funches as King Shark. Come on, Birds of Prey had the Mexican premiere last night. They are saying they knocked it out of the park. Yeah. Like, I've heard nothing but good things about that movie, which is very strange to me because it's like that movie should be a garbage fire.
Because why would you?
Just because it's like you have Huntress, Black Canary, like
the casting is
Black
like
Mask. It's characters that not the average, like they're not known.
Yeah, well, Black Mask has been known. Black Canary has been known.
Black Mask is known because of the video games. Let's be honest.
No, I mean it's like his character was one of those guys where 9 times out of 10 you want to see him get shot in the face by Red Hood. Let's be honest. But it's like he's one of those guys who's like Cersei Lannister. You're like, how is he still alive and how is he not going to die? But casting aside for Birds of Prey, we know that Margot Robbie owns that role as Harley Quinn. Like just hands down owns that role as Harley Quinn. You know my thing about Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I just and Rosie Perez looks good for me in this film.
You say the girl that plays Black Canary knocks it out of the park.
Jessie Smollett's sister.
Yeah, Juicy Smollett. I'll never be able to unpronounce it as that. But yes, that's really exciting for me. But like, that Harley Quinn cartoon, I really have to emphasize, guys. Watch it, pirate it, however you have to get it.
What is her?
Blake Bell as Poison Ivy is incredible. And can I tell you, my new favorite side character, Kite Man. Like what they did with the Kite Man character is so hilarious. Yeah. Have you seen the episode yet where they go on a date? He's got flowers. He's like, that's basically like handing me baby heads. You realize that? And he goes, baby heads attached to baby bodies. Because who's one step ahead of you? Kite Man. Like it makes fun of itself in a way that shouldn't work. But it does. They've already greenlit season 2. But that alone is enough for a DC Universe subscription to me. Like, that show is insane. And Doom Patrol, man. Doom Patrol is some of the best story. I will emphasize enough. It's some of the best storytelling ever. And it's official. Watchmen will not get a season 2, which is insanely sad. But we knew this from New York Comic Con. He said, like, everybody dies. I'm not writing this for season 2. And everyone just assumed he was joking. Like,
no, and I'm fine with that. There's some things where it's like this is one of the things I will say the Arrowverse, and I've been saying this for years. Cut down your episodes. And give us an anthology over the time. Give us an anthology over time.
And then that'll end us with our final guest here, which I've already got set up on March 3rd. Will be a special edition show. We will have none other than the lovely Miss Danielle Panabaker from The Flash. Caitlin Snow, Killer Frost herself, will be Skyping into the studio to talk all things Flash with us. Why on March 3rd, you're asking? Because she is directing her very first episode of The Flash, which will be airing on March 3rd, which is very fun. Her and both Melissa Benoist started directing their own episodes of the shows this season.
Good.
But that's going to be a huge one for me. I love her character, love what they're doing. But spreading things out, we're going to have an actor, a comedian, and some great comic book creators on the show as we look forward to try to expanding our guest lineup for 2020. And then we will also finally be launching the Get Your Geek On website on Super Bowl Sunday. So GygoNetwork.com will go live. We've recruited 2 new amazing reviewers, Catherine Chinetti and Daryl Harnell, which will be doing incredible reviews for us. More on that coming forward. We're actually going to be launching a second show on the Gygo Network, which is going to be very exciting as well. Join us here next week, where guest host Daniel Beatty will be joining us. Be nice to have DC Dan back in house with us. And any final words for today's show, Robert?
There was something I wanted to say that was interesting, but
I would just like to say personally, thank you as we head into 2020, which is hard to believe. This is technically our 6th year now doing this show. 122 episodes in, my friend. You've been here for every single one of them. And I gotta say thank you for that. I mean, to see where we've grown and like what this show is now doing with our convention circuits and stuff like that. 2020 is gonna be a crazy year for Get Your Geek On, but
2020.
It's hard to believe that we've been sitting at this table for that long.
Oh boy. Wow. Okay.
And thank you guys, the audience, for being here with us. I mean, we've had explosive growth this past week or so on the page, and it's very incredible. It's all thanks to the people like you. You're the reason we're here. So I'm very excited to get back to having guests on the show, though. So that'll be a very fun one for me.
Absolutely.
So like I said, those will be our next 4 guests. They'll all be within the next month or so. Harvey Guillen's going to be a really fun one because he's got some exclusive stuff for us for season 2. So that's going to wrap things up for episode 122 of the Get Your Geek On podcast. I've been Chuck Hewatts.
I'm Robert Dokes.
And you guys have yourselves a week. And I told you so. I told you so about Ezra Miller. I told you so. I told you. I said it was happening, and it happened.